Hello, I'm Pieta, and it's once again that time of the year when summer is right around the corner. For many this means a long break from school, but for people my age summer is usually time for getting some bread. Last summer I had my first official summer job. By official I mean that I was actually registered as a worker in my town's books instead of just doing work for my parents for less than minimum wage. When I first began looking for a job, I had a few standards. I didn't want to work in customer service, and that's about it. I found out that my local cemetery was looking for workers, and I was like, oh heck yeah! Because it would mean working in nature, working mainly independently, and the work would be physical, which meant I'd get my day's exercise in as well. Also, my third cousin had worked there a few years back, and she seemed to like it, so the place was perfect. Sure, you might argue that working in such a place is kind of morbid on some level, but I don't really quiver around death, so to say. And it's not like I had to be dealing with actual corpses. I just needed to make sure that they slept peacefully. Right? Getting the job was easier than expected. I went to the congregation building prepared to handle any questions they might have for me, but they only asked about my cousin and gave me a paper to sign, and that was about it. So on the first day I got there, and my hopeful expectations of working alone were immediately crushed. These are my co-workers: Brains, Beauty, and Braun. And Pieta. The congregation had also hired this older woman who had worked there every summer for like 30 years. We'll call her Madame because she truly was like a mother hen to us. She was basically our manager and gave us all the tasks to do. Our job description consisted mainly of raking leaves for the entire first week. I was so sore after that I thought I'd end up as one of the dead ones, but the workload lightened after that and we just had to clean away candles and trash, turn over soil and plant new flowers. My hopes of avoiding customer service were also crushed when a random man asked me for a shovel. This was in the first week, so I actually had no idea where the shovels were supposed to be. I just pointed in the general direction of a shovel I'd seen lying on the ground and hoped he wouldn't ask any more questions. At first I wondered what a random man would be doing with a shovel when he didn't even work here, but he was probably just going to plant a flower on his wife's grave or something. Right? Working outside wasn't as fun as I'd hoped either. In the first week it was freezing, but the second I was drowning in sweat. The mosquitoes and occasional rain didn't help the case either. Luckily we didn't have to be outside in terrible weather, so we cleaned the cemetery chapel instead. On the second week, when we started turning the earth in the graves for the flowers, we also had to fertilize it. No one else wanted to do it for some reason, so I was like, psh, cowards, I'll do it. It's just fertilizer, right? And as I was arms deep in the dirt, Braun casually asked, I wonder how the loved ones feel with us stuffing their dead's graves with chicken shit. Chicken what? Yeah, I smelled after that. At some point during the last week we heard Madame call for us as she had noticed a gravestone out of place. After a little investigation we found tire tracks. Someone had bumped on the stone and pushed it sideways. Braun had to push it back in place since he was the strongest of us, while the rest of us cheered for him. You may not think of this in your day-to-day life, but gravestones are actually really heavy. Madame came to the conclusion that the person who'd backed into the stone was the congregation's cantor. How he got away with it, I have no idea. At first I thought I'd spend my lunch breaks eating soggy bread in the chapel basement, but Madame took me and Brains with her to the congregation building to eat, since we didn't live near enough to eat at home like Beauty and Braun did. I prepared to act all Christian-like and proper, but to my surprise the people there, including my boss, were really chill and joked around a lot. At one point they asked me and Brains if we thought Beauty and Braun would look cute together. No. They were straight up shipping our co-workers when they weren't looking. Another surprising thing was the cursing. When I showed up on my first day, I had washed out my mouth with soap because I've always had the idea that you do not use foul language on church-owned grounds. However, I counted and Madame cursed a total of 28 times on just my first week there. I stopped counting after that, but even my boss threw in a couple of curse words here and there. This is not to throw them under the bus, by the way. They were so nice and funny, and overall it was a pretty pleasant working environment. I didn't have to socialize with my coworkers too much either, mostly we just did our own thing and I'm happy with that. The cemetery was very beautiful during the day, trees and flowers and butterflies everywhere. We even saw like 2 frogs! When it got darker it looked a little spooky, but in an exciting way. If you're looking for a casual outside job and are not bothered by being surrounded by death, I definitely recommend giving graveyards a try. And hey, at least the customers don't complain.